Hello. I wanted to go through a feature added in Vicinity 4.29 related to selecting lots on a batch and its impact on the batch itself. There are some industries that we're in where a specific lot, an attribute or a property of a lot will affect the quantity of that raw material that you want to put into a batch. For example, a raw material coming in with a higher concentration of an active ingredient may require less of that ingredient to get the desired results on a batch. We see this in various nutraceutical products, chemical products, food, breweries, etc. So it happens fairly often, but it's all tied to the lot itself. So when you add a lot into the system, there is a value associated with this. In breweries, it's alpha acids. So the more alpha acids in that particular lot, the less poundage that they need to put into a batch. So we're supporting that concept. This is our first stage of it, and we'd love some feedback as we move forward. So seeing this in practice, I've got a formula that requires 50 units, in this case pounds, of this raw material. I can go ahead and select 50 pounds, and I have my system turned on to automatically bring up my lot selection because this is a lot tracked item. I have 3 lots listed out here. Prior to this release, you basically saw these columns up through expiration date. This new release adds some additional data. I'll talk about that in a separate demo. But one of these columns is marked as one that modifies the quantity going into a batch. So for example, moisture is my standard moisture. I'll go show you how I set that up in a minute, but it's 13. So a lot that uses that has a moisture value of 13, which is the value, that lot will be added in a one-to-one relationship, a one-to-one ratio. However, if we use a different lot, one that has got less concentration, or in this case less moisture, it needs to add more to that batch to get the desired result of 50 standard units. And then, of course, conversely, anything higher than that would actually use less of that poundage to get the desired result because it has more moisture or more of this attribute associated with it. So in this case, I'm actually going to pull 49 pounds, 49.2 pounds, and put into the batch, and it'll have the effect of having put in 50 standard units. Now let's talk a little bit about how this is done. There's 2 parts to this. One is identifying or flagging this attribute as one that we want to be doing this work on. So right here is that moisture attribute that I've got. And this value has been set to numeric. That is important. It needs to be a numeric attribute to make this work. And we've also said set as the lot sizing attribute. You can have one lot sizing attribute. You can have one attribute identified as the lot sizing attribute per raw material. So currently we're not supporting kind of multiple variables. So in this case, my moisture is the one that I'm going to size on. My standard value is put here in the numeric value field. So here, this 13 is my par, if you will. If a lot came in at 13 for the value, that it would get the quantity necessary. If it got a value less than that, it would need to add more to compensate, and a value greater than 13 would need less to compensate. So that's how the standard is set up. You identify the attribute first. You also tell it that it's going to be a sizing attribute, and then give it your standard value. You will not be able to check this box. It will be grayed out if there is no value associated with it. So it'll look like this when you come in. You need to make sure you put in a value, otherwise this will stay grayed. So in this case, we've got 13. I'll put that back in, and you can see that it's now able to be checked. Just save it and it'll work. Now, on a lot by lot basis, you'll need to identify what is the lot's value of moisture in this case. So these values come from one of 2 places. One place it could be done is against QC. So when I set up that attribute for that raw material, I could actually tie a QC result to that attribute. So right here, I say enable attribute on component lots, and I can have a numeric test that I would assign, probably not a pH, but like a moisture as an example. I can assign that so that in quality sample entry, when I enter the value against that QC test, it'll populate the lot attribute value for that lot. The other way to do it, if you don't want to do it through through QC testing, you can do it through a separate table. This is actually what is getting read by this is what's getting read by the lot selection. So here are the lot attributes that I've got. Here is my moisture. And so for this particular lot of that raw material, I've got a moisture of 12.2. If I pick up a different lot that I've got of that raw material, I would have, say, 13 as an example. Let's just pull that lot up here. So here we see that moisture is 13. It happens to be the same as par. And then I can also come in and look at another lot, which might be this one as an example, which is 13.2. So this table can either manually be entered instead of going to QC, or this table automatically gets entered if you tie that QC test to this attribute when you set up the attribute. So when we did all of that, set that up, this is where these values came from. So take a look, see what you think. There's also some documentation that comes with this release. Read through that. Also, feel free to give us a call. We're happy to walk you through this. This is a really big change for us, and we're interested in seeing where we take this. Potentially multiple attributes driving out different line items, but we'll see where this goes. Currently, we are limiting it to one attribute. Does a simple modification of the quantity being issued to a batch. Anyway, we hope that helps, and let us know what you think after you take a look.